Hello and welcome back to the course. Today we'll be starting to lay out the framework for our upgrade system. This may actually take a few videos because this is pretty large and there's a lot of UI to go into this, and UI can be a bit complicated to record and show off. Yes, we'll also want to take some time to come up with at least 3 starting upgrades. That's something that I haven't actually thought about yet and I'm currently planning out. But today we'll be focusing on the basics of the UI, or the user interface. I actually designed a flowchart for this, so we can actually look at a flowchart and it will kind of really help with visualizing what we want. So let's go take a quick look at that. Yes, so this is our flowchart for our upgrade menu. Now, it's not actually a flowchart. I just used the flowchart versioning to kind of show you what it would visually look like, and this is kind of what I visually want. I want it to, have a little box pop up on the screen, and then you get 3 options. You get a good karma option, a bad karma option, and then a random. So the random will basically pick between good and bad. The good will come from the good upgrade pool, bad will come from the bad upgrade pool, and kind of so on. Now, if I scroll up a little bit, this is kind of, in a coding perspective, what we're going to want, but we don't really need to worry about this right now. It's just a nice thing to look at, right? So you finish a run with good karma, you unlock more good karma upgrades, and those go into the upgrade pool. You do it with the bad, same thing, they unlock bad karma upgrades. If you finish a run with neutral karma, i.e. you're within a certain range, you'll unlock either a good or bad, depending on how the coin flips or how the dice rolls, right? And then those will be fed back into the upgrade menu, and then you'll be able to pick from them. So that's kind of what I want. Now, if we once again go back to this and we look at the layout here, we've got a title, the benefits and type of upgrade that it is. So if, like, the karmic type, so it'll say that it's good karma, or we could just change this to a basic type, like is it a stat upgrade, a weapon upgrade, or something along those lines. A description, and then a button to purchase. And we'll have that kind of same thing for all 3 upgrades. And then we'll finally have this button down here to skip and save money. Now, we'll also have a title up the top to let people know what's going on. It's always good to title things and kind of really show it off in a really easy to understand way when you're doing UI. UI can be make or break in games sometimes. If the UI is lacking, things can get very confusing. If the UI is really good, it just gives a smoother experience. So yeah, that's kind of what I want it to look like. Now, I actually went one step further with this flowchart, so I designed the kind of pseudocode around what we want, and I even broke down the boxes for your eyes specifically. And this is pretty much how we're going to be designing it. This is why I love a lot of the prototyping phase, when you're kind of coming up with things, because I will do this for a lot of different games. Designing it like this allows me to just glance at this and go, okay, I know what I need to actually design this UI with nodes specifically. So the actual upgrade option box is a vertical box, okay? The title and the benefit type will be a label. The description will be a label inside of a scroll box, so we can have really long descriptions and it won't matter about the sizing. And then, of course, the purchase button, cost, and the skip button will be buttons. So we now kind of have a really basic understanding of how we want to lay these out. Now, I went and created this. This is the upgrade menu on paper. This tells us like a really rough bullet point of what we want. 2 upgrade pools, 3 types of runs that your character can do, good, bad, and neutral. How you get karma: you get good karma by not defeating enemies, bad karma by defeating enemies. You get a neutral win if you let enough go and you defeat enough. And then karma goes, based off of a scale. So if you are at, let's say, 2 karma, and then you defeat an enemy, you will then go down to, like, it will basically be -1 karma, so you'll go down to 0 karma, or 1 karma in this instance. Yeah, and that's kind of how I want it to work, right? So let's say you defeat 20 enemies, you'll be in the -20 range, and then you let 5 enemies go, you'll then go down to -15, and you'll kind of start to figure it out like that. That way it is it's easy to do bad karma runs, right? You want it to be kind of easy to make the harder or the bad choice. That way, when people sit there and go, well, what if I make the good choice and I want to go positive? Well, now they've actually got to play a different type of game, right? They've now got to play the avoidance game, where they try to avoid enemies and save money and pick up money. Whereas bad, it's just like, oh, I'll just go and bonk everything on the head and be fine. And then neutral is even more interesting because now you've got to kind of keep track of what your good karma is, or what your karma is, how good it is, how bad it is, how many things you've defeated, how many things you've let go, and how many coins you're collecting. That way we're kind of designing a few different types of ways the game can be played, and that can be a lot of fun for a lot of people that just want to, if they just want to play the game and just go, I don't care about that, just do what they want, great. And then they get hooked on it and they go, okay, well, what if I just do this type of run, different playstyle, different thing, just more replayability, more fun. So that's kind of how I want the karma system to be designed and how I want the upgrade menu to look. So I'm going to scroll back in and we'll take another quick glance at this so we can really sync this in. So control node overall, and then a vertical box, then some labels inside of that, then a scroll box and a label, then some buttons, and that's it. That is the whole upgrade menu on paper kind of planned out for us. Now, there are, of course, a lot of little interesting little settings and numbers we're going to have to set to get it to look how we want, but I've gotten all of those written down and I can kind of explain as we go through. So let's actually get back to our project and start designing this. What we want to do immediately, of course, is go and create a new scene. Now, this is going to be of type user interface, going to be a control node to start. And we're going to just start off with the base of the upgrade menu. So we'll just call it upgrade. We can do no space in the middle. There you go. Upgrade menu. That's what we're going to call it. And then inside of this, we are going to add a margin container. So we want a margin container so that way we can like kind of choose where we want to kind of fit the box. So we want it to be in the screen. We don't want it to be full screen, and we don't want it to be in one of the corners or something, right? We want it to be centered. And there's a few ways you can do that. Personally, I like to do this where I set the margin container to full rect, and then I go over to the theme overrides, and then we go into constants, and all we have to do here is set the margin for the borders or the padding on the border, right? So I'm going to set these to 24 each. The reason why I'm choosing 24 is after some testing, I've kind of figured out that 24 just seems to fit really well. It looks a lot better, and I kind of like it that way. So that's that margin container sorted. Now we're going to add one more thing, and that is going to be the VBox container. So a VBox, or a vertical box container, will arrange its children going from top to bottom in like a list form. And that's kind of what we want when we want to start building off the base of this, right? Because we're going to want a title at the top, the upgrade menu in the middle, and then another button at the bottom. And this is just the simplest way of getting that to work. Now, we're going to want to make sure that the alignment is going to be at center. And then we're going to add a little bit of separation in the box as well by using the constants and theme override separation for the VBox container. Set that to 12. And we'll hit Control S and save this under Scenes, UI. I'm going to create a new folder, and we're going to call this the upgrade _ menu, because this is going to contain all of the upgrade menu, all of the buttons, all of the things that we actually need. So click save. And that's it. That is the foundation for our upgrade menu kind of sorted. We don't need to do anything else with this yet. We'll come back and kind of modify it as we go. So the next thing, we're going to create another new scene, and this is going to be for the upgrade option specifically. So the way that we're going to design this is we're going to have upgrade options that we can instantiate, and then depending on how we want to like kind of set them up via code, we'll have a few tick boxes and drop down menus to kind of change that around for us. But it's all going to just be one single kind of like overarching scene for the options in general. So we're going to want a control node. Now we need to kind of think about how we want to set this up, because we don't want it to be full screen, right? We don't want one option to be full screen if we want to fit 3 on there, because we're going to want 3 upgrade options. So what I figured out is what we can do is we can change the anchor presets and the minimum size, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the anchor preset to center, like so. Then I'm going to go over to layout, to the custom minimum size, And I'm going to change this to 164 pixels in the X to 200 pixels in the Y. And that's it. This is going to be the size of our upgrade option. Now, it won't, of course, be centered. It will be going in like a 1, 2, and then 3, like so. But this gives us a really good padding on both sides and some ability to add separation when we need to. But with the upgrade control button or control box sorted, we now want to go and add something special. We want to add a panel. Panels are, as it says here, a GUI control that displays a style box. This is kind of really useful. Let's go and set this to 4rect and you'll see why. So you'll see here, if I click off, we now have this kind of, well, black box that we can just kind of stick things in, and it's kind of visual. And that's actually why panels are so great. You can go and add different styles to them. So you can add your own colored styles to them. You could add borders. You can add pretty much anything you want and then make everything kind of fit around or inside this panel. For now, we just want a black box in the middle, and this will kind of do. So with that sorted, it's in 4x, so we now get the rough size of our window. We're going to go and add a margin container. Now, why do we want a margin container as well as a panel? Well, eventually, when it comes to creating the art, because this is all pixely, I'm going to want to create a kind of fancy pixelized border, right? And I'm going to have it so, or I would like to have it so how when we pick, depending on what type of upgrade we want. So if we pick like one box is going to be a good upgrade and one box is going to be a bad upgrade, whichever type of upgrade that will be karma-wise, the border will be different. So it's very easy to visually spot. And that's kind of why I want a margin container, because margin containers, once again, allow me to add padding. So we're just going to go 4 pixel padding in the theme overrides constants. And that should give us the padding that we want. What I'm going to do to show that off is I will grab a label real quick, write a bunch of nonsense in it real quick, and then I'm just going to duplicate it a bunch of times. And that's going to make it annoying to show, so we're just going to add a V, not duplicate that, use, press the button again. We'll add a VBox to this. I just want to, as I said, show this off a little bit. So you don't have to follow these steps. This is just me fiddling around to show you what it looks like. There we go. So we get this like a little bit of a padding around the sides. Now we could add, knock this up to 6 pixels to make it a little bit more padded, which, you know, that looks pretty fine to me. 4 to 6 is usually the place that looks good if you want to add borders. So I'm going to stick with 6 for now. And yeah, we actually do want this VBox container now I think about it. So we'll delete all the labels and we'll keep the VBox container. Now, the VBox container only needs one setting changed, and that is just the alignment here. The alignment needs to be set at the beginning because we're going to want to go from top to bottom. Or at least we're going to want to keep it so it's at the top, basically. And now all we have to do is start kind of adding things to this upgrade option. And let's go and glance at the Obsidian real quick. So yes, taking a look at this, this is kind of what we're going to want inside the upgrade options. So we've got the VBox sorted already, which means now we need to do a label for, so we're going to need 2 labels for the upgrade title and the benefits and karma type. So let's go and create those real quick. Inside of our VBox container, we'll click Control A to add, and then we will pick a label. We're going to call this the upgrade title label in the text, and then we will actually call it, like rename the node to upgrade label. I'm gonna pull this out a bit so it's easier to see. There we go. It's good idea to start naming these like this, because when we start editing them through code and wanting to change their text, it'll be very easy to see which does what. Now we're going to want, let's do another label. So what we can do here really quickly is highlight it and hit Control D and duplicate it. And this one is going to be for the stats, basically. So we'll go stats label, or we'll just write stats in the text, and then we will rename this to the stats label. because we want to know what stats it gives us, like what type of upgrade it actually is. And then we're going to want a scroll box, right? So let's go take a look at the obsidian again, and we see here scroll box and then a label with inside of it, so we can get a long description if we want to, and it won't mess with any of our sizings. So VBox container, Control A to add. I'm going to add a scroll container here. You'll see that it's going to give us a little bit of a warning, and it's going to be a bit unhappy with us. That is completely fine. First thing we're going to want to do in here before we start adding things to it is go down to layout, and in the Y specifically we are going to want to add a custom minimum size of 64, and that just gives us like this kind of big box to throw our label into and let it actually start doing things. Speaking of the label, let's go and add a label to the scrollbox container. Not a scroll bar, we want a label, there we go. I'm going to just write the word many times, and then I'm going to paste it a bunch. And now you'll see here that our scrollbox container is scrolling from left to right, and the label itself is only going, like, it's not auto wrapping its words into the container sizing that we want. That could be a bit of a problem. So let's go and change that. Let's first change the scroll container because it's at the top. All we have to do here is come over to where it says scroll container here for the scroll modes. For horizontal, we want to disable, and for vertical, we'll just keep it like that. And now we have a new issue of our label is huge, and so is our scroll box. Let's go and set the alignments correctly on this, make sure that's all fine. Now, in the label, and this is the reason why it's so big, we're going to want to start kind of aligning things correctly. So to align things, we're going to first go down to auto wrap and use word. Now it's going to smush it all. That's a bit of a problem. We don't want it to all be smushed. And now to fix the smushing, we just go down to layout and we change the minimum sizes. I'm going to use 124 by 124 in the X and Y. Now we have our words all fitting correctly inside of a description. But there is this little thing here where it's not specifically aligned, right? So I'm going to make sure that everything is aligned to the left side, like so. To change that, you can just go up to, click on the node you want, click on the alignments, and then you can force the alignments like so. So I want it aligned to the left side. You could do full fill. Full fill is probably a good idea to make it kind of fit the padding a little bit better. And yeah, if we want to like very quickly go and test this and make sure that it works, we can either press the F6 key, or we can come up to the top here and click run current scene. And then it will be like, well, what scene do you want to... Oh, we actually need to save our scene. So yes, let's save this as... we'll rename it to upgrade option. Now we'll save the scene like so inside of the upgrade menu folder. Now we'll click run scene, and we get our little box. That's great. We have our little box. It looks good. We can scroll the box as much as we want. Now, I'm already seeing a few issues with this that we'll fix in a second. First, we're going to add the final thing to our upgrade menu option to make it actually be finalized. And to do that, we're going to go to the VBox container, select that specifically. Then we're going to hit Control A. We are going to add our button. Now, the button is at the bottom. We need to not really change anything about the button. That's the kind of the best part about this, is the button is going to fit sizing perfectly. We can just change the text inside of it to buy for like X amount. We'll do 250C for 250 coins. Now I'm going to click play one more time, and we can see here that it does kind of look, it's got everything we want, but it doesn't look correct, right? We've got the buttons all the way smushed, everything's kind of all smushed together a bit too much. Now, I showed that we can go to the VBox container, theme overrides constants, and add separation to this, like so. So I added 12 pixel separation, I click play, and it works, it's there. But let me go and reset that real quick. There is something else we can actually add inside of the containers here that will also do separation for us. Now this is the more customizable way of doing this. You don't have to do this. If you want to just add the separation, set it at however many pixels you want to separate it by and just leave it like that, feel free, do that, and then you can ignore or just watch what I do next. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the VBox, I'm going to hit Control A and add, and I'm going to go and add a H separator. So this thing right here is a horizontal separator. And I can put that between the node that I actually want to mess with. So I can duplicate that, I can put one there, and then I can duplicate that, and I can put one there. So you see now we've got these lines in between things. Now what I can do is click on my separators, and I can start changing. Let's go to the first separator. So H separator 1, theme overrides, constants, and we'll change the separation on this one to this is the title, so let's give it like 24 pixels. That's way too many pixels, right? That's way too much separation. So let's knock this down to 12. And then we'll do the same thing on the stats here. You want people to be able to see that quite easily, so we'll change this one to 12. And you'll see, as we start doing this, it starts to get, well, it's very separated now. There's a lot of separation between all of our things to the point where it's starting to push the buy button down. So I'm going to change the final one here to 6. There we go. Now I can click the F6 button or the play scene button, and we can look at this and we can see that things look pretty good now. Things are kind of starting to come together and look good. Now, one final thing I want to change, this is the last thing, and I'm going to show you how to do this all at the same time. We're going to click on each label. So we're going to click on the first one, and then we're going to control click on the second, and then the third. Then we're going to scroll down in the inspector here to theme overrides, font sizes, and we're going to go and change the font sizes to 12 pixels. That makes it a little bit smaller and it makes things fit a little bit better. So we'll click the play scene button again, see how it looks. I much prefer this. The title might be a bit too small though, because we want the title to kind of pop so people know exactly what they're getting. So let's go to 16 pixels and then hit the F6 button and play. I like that. I like the look of this. You've got the upgrade that pops. The description is something like font sizes is something we're going to be messing around with more as we start to code and actually fill up these like boxes with actual text, like the actual title, the actual stats, and the actual description. I can already tell you that the description font size right now might actually be a bit too small. And one thing that I can do to change that is make sure that this is set on expand in every direction, and the custom minimum size is set to 164. That's way too big, never mind. Let's go 144. That feels better, that looks better. We're fitting a little bit more on each line, and the box is looking better. Now, if you followed me, but you don't like these H separator lines here, we're going to go and change that as well. So to do that, we can highlight all of them. We can go to theme, theme here, and then we can add new theme. Or, let's do this even better. We'll go down to theme overrides, style, click on the empty, new style box empty, and that's it. It's done, it's all separated. Everything is kind of how we want it to be. I might leave the theme for the title like that to have a line next to it, because that kind of separates the title from the rest of the words, and yeah, I like the look of this. So let's hit Control S and save, and that is our upgrade option created. Now what we have to do is go back into the upgrade menu and actually start adding this stuff to here and getting the layout that we want. So with our VBox here, what is the first thing we want in our VBox? Well, first thing we're going to want, of course, is a title. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a panel because I like the outlining. So we're going to add a panel. We're going to add a minimum size here with the layout. So minimum size, I'm going to make it 240 in the X and let's go 32 in the Y. So it's this little thick box here. Then inside of the panel, I'm going to add a label. Now you'll see it's pushed up in the top left corner. I don't want that. I want to put this into the center. And I'm going to add a text to this. This is going to say upgrade. Actually, let's make it choose an upgrade or save or skip. We'll do or skip. There we go. Or skip. So that's what our title is going to look like for this window. Now I want this to basically not be this large. And the way we can make it not this large is to change the horizontal to shrink to center, like so. So that's what the title is going to look like. But of course it's in the middle right now. We don't want it to be in the middle, and that will change as we start adding things in our VBox container. So I'm going to Control A and add another panel inside of the VBox container. This one's going to be a bit different. We're going to go down into the layout, into the container sizing, and we're just going to click the expand button. So you can already start to see how the window is coming together. Now, before I start messing more with what's inside the panel, I'm going to go to the VBox container, hit Control A and I'm going to add a button. And then we can just change this button's naming to be save, and now we'll just call this the skip button. So you can skip the upgrade and save your money. Other thing we can do is just say skip and save money. There we go. That way people can know. It's always a good idea to give people as much information as possible. Although it's one of those things that you look at and you're like, people won't need these reminders all the time that they can just save their money so they can actually keep playing the game properly. It might just be a good idea to give those reminders, because you'll have... It's like me. A lot of games, there's quite a few times where I'm like, is there a way of doing X, Y, Z thing? And then I actually pay attention to the menu and it's like, yes, you can do that. It's obvious. It's right in front of you. And yeah, I can skip over that all the time and not read it. So keeping that in mind, you always want to make sure that things are laid out in a way that allow people to really easily read them and really sink that information in without actually having to think about it too much. Now, back to our button. Let's go and change the layout a little bit to the container sizing and the horizontal. Once again, I'm going to do shrink to center because I like the button being a bit more free floating. It doesn't have to be, we can change that if we want to, but I like the container being free floating. Now, I guess the final thing we actually need to add to this will be if we go into the panel 2 here, which is what's going to be holding the upgrades. I'm going to rename that to the upgrade container panel. There we go. So we now have it named, so it's just easy for us to look at and find. I'm now going to go Control Shift A, and I'm going to add the upgrade option that we created. Now, if I just put a bunch of these in, so I'll highlight the upgrade option and then Control D and D to duplicate it, you'll see that they're just stacked on top of each other. Well, how do we go about fixing them? If you have figured it out or have an idea on how to fix that, go ahead. And I will give you a little hint. It shouldn't take more than, if you have an idea, the idea shouldn't take more than 30 seconds to kind of put together, because it's just a few button presses. And giving you some time, I will go and do that myself. So the easy way of fixing this and making sure it works is to use Control A and add to the upgrade container panel. And we're going to add a HBox container. We're going to full rect the HBox container, and then we are just going to move these upgrade options into the container. Now you'll see they're pushed up into the top left corner. We'll click on the HBox container, change the alignment to center. That's it. That is the HBox container kind of sorted. Now there is something to be said about how these are kind of completely pushed together. Let's first change the separation in the HBox container by clicking on it. Going to the separation, we'll add like a 12 pixel separation. No, let's go 16 pixel separation. That's better. And then let's change the VBox container's separation to, let's say, 10. Not 01, 10. Okay, no, I will too much. Change that back to 12. Other thing we can do actually whilst we're here is we can, inside the upgrade container panel, we're going to change this a little bit compared to what I actually have for the prototype. So this is going to be a bit on the fly. In the upgrade container panel, we can add another margin container. And we can move that to the top. And then we can full rect the margin container. We can throw our HBox container with all of the upgrade options inside of that. And then we can actually go down to theme overrides, constants, and add a bit of a border to all of this. 4 pixels, that doesn't feel like enough to me. I'm going to just try throwing 12 at it and see how that feels. I like the look of that a lot more. So what we can do now is we can press the F6 key, or we can hit run current scene in the top right corner. And this is how our upgrade menu will look. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of stylization we need to do. We need to add some actual graphics to it. We're just using some black boxes and stuff for now, but it's all set, it's all sorted. This is the framework UI. The next thing that we need to go and do is actually start coding all this up, right? We're going to want to code a way for this to appear, of course. We're also going to want to start filling in these boxes with the actual upgrades we want to use, which means we're going to need to start looking into designing the upgrade pools and then start connecting them to these buttons, and then think about how we're going to do that. But for now, this is the upgrade menu added. We are done with this. We can now move on and kind of do that. Yeah. Thank you for watching. I hope you're having a great day and a great game dev journey, and I will see you next time.